I'm just asking my tomato over there, what am I going to talk about? She is my tomato. Too what? It's such a pleasure to be here with you lot. Hadn't seen you for a long time ago. Do, Mate, and Ellen. I've taken Lisa and the rest of you. Morena. I don't know where Tuwaka wanted me to start from.
From the
But
beginning.
I just whispered to him before I came up. Okay, I'll talk about Canon Paio's time. You won't remember him? I think you know where I speak. No, he means my father was Roman Catholic from the Green Isle, Killarney.
Irish, eh?
And when Bettina and her brother went on a world tour recently, I said to her before they left, if you are going to go to Ireland, please kiss the Blarney Stone for me. When she came back, she said, Auntie, it was difficult, but I did it. She kissed the Blarney Stone for me. But I want to get on to Canon Pahoa, who was a dear, those who knew him, was a dear, dear son. He had a buggy. Used to come from the country, across the mountain river, and come to Torre and to take me to service. And when we had our first kahuwahi in the college in the car, I asked his mokopuna Rokopaora if she would look up her tupuna's writings, which she did do. And in that pamphlet of his, and I think there is a copy of the Kawiwahine pamphlet at the office. Can I ask Betsy if she has copies there that you would like to read? Because it's very interesting what he did. He covered the whole of the coast, and in that pamphlet he's got going to see the bishop in Napier today to collect my salary. 2 guineas the whole month. Can you survive on that today?
What is it?
And Don would know all about this. And I'll talk about our first 3 bishops, Don, if you don't mind. Your father, Bishop Panapa, Bishop Manu. Those 3, as you well know, the Waka, did not have an easy time in the church with the Pākehā bishops. Some Pākehā bishops, not all of them. Bishop Panapa was never allowed to go home up north to see his whānaus or when they had tangihanas to take the services or anything like that. Bishop Simkin, remember him, Don? Little weenie.
Nice
Was
piece.
the Archbishop there, and lived in England. And he flatly refused poor old Bishop Panapa to go home up north to take any of the services, their tangis or anything like that. Fortunately for Bishop Bennett, the first bishop, suffragette they were, first suffragette bishop, Bishop Bennett, lived in Kuopatiki. So he didn't get all the flack that these Bishop Panapa received afterwards. Bishop Manu was more rebellious, wasn't he? Rebellious for our people. Whenever they had the synod in Napier, all 3 bishops in their time were never allowed to vote. They just sat there on their chairs on one side of the main dining table, holding the croziers, never said a word. It was sad. It was really, really sad in those days. But Bishop Manu was more rebellious. And it's fortunate that he was more rebellious. When we got married, in those days, our priests had to train 3 years under a Pākehā priest as a curate. And he was training in fielding at the time. So after we got married, we went back to fielding, and I was teaching at one of the schools. But he was fortunate that he had a wonderful Pākehā vicar by the name of Fred Ball, who had sympathy with our Māori people. And Fred Ball would always encourage Hui to do what he felt was right for our people. And at the time, Manu was, in those days, the areas used to be, fielding was around Chike Manawatu area. They covered Palmerston, Taihape, right down the Whanganui River and fielding. And every Friday night I'd get back from school, the phone would ring. And it was Don's brother. What are you doing tomorrow? And I said, my only day, Uncle Manu, to do my washing and tidy our house because I'm at school for the rest of the week. Get on your bikes, we had a biking. No car. And we lived a mile away from where they lived. Get on your bikes tomorrow, put your washing in your bicycle baskets and bring it down here to the vicarage. So we would do that, and their wash house was separate from the house. And leave Manu and Hui in the wash house to do the washing while we did the cooking. And it was those times that Hui and Manu started talking about the future of our church in the Tahamara. Sleepless nights. And around about 11 o'clock, car would go in again. You two want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? And suddenly they twig. We just wanted to forget on what they were talking about. And then they start talking Kiwa. Just to make us go to read. But we wouldn't. But actually, that was where the thought for the Pihopatana started. That's all they talked about. Every weekend. And fortunately for them, there were some Pākehā bishops, like the Bishop of Christchurch, Bishop Pye, Alan Pye, the Bishop of Nelson, Bishop Sutton, and a couple of other bishops from up north here, who favoured what they were talking about. They wanted to start the Pihopatana. And that's how our Pihopatana came into being. It was those nights on end in fielding. And that's all they talked about. Every weekend. But it was so interesting to hear what they had to say. If we did this, if we did that, and fortunately there were those Pākehā bishops who were right behind them. Bishop Simpkins, just a little wee man. He wouldn't let Parnab, as I said, go back home to take burials or baptisms or anything like that. It was sad. But we came through that with flying colours, I thought. All the struggle they had. And then Uncle Sam Rangihu, he was still Wihuata, canon we heard that, and they have to get together. Ki haka, and I was thinking ki haka, and there were certain ones of them that really got together and started things going for the people Katan. And it was sad. I feel sad in a way when I hear certain things are happening in our high. But we do have to have changes. Have to have changes to better things. Not to worsen, but to better. To better things. And Don, you know all this, all that experience that you have in people who did Kurubasi. And it was our own people, especially, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was mostly from Tuhoe back the other way down the coast and round, back to Napier. In the old days, the old parsons had cows, they milked their own cows. Your one back at Tuhoe, he had his own farm, and that's how they lived. But the most cannon pie we ever got as cannon was 2 shillings and 6 pence.
2 shillings and 6 pence.
2 guineas.
Oh,
It's
2 guineas.
incredible.
2 guineas.
A month.
Isn't it?
21.
Incredible.
Oh,
21
21.
Yeah.
change.
2 sounds.
So they need
And
help.
if you were to ask Betsy for a copy of our Kahuwahine booklet, that when we had the Kahuwahine conference at Te Kaha, it's all in there. In his booklet he has recipes, church services and everything. And he was very fond of Sweet Williams and, I'll get the other flower now, but he would have all those in his church service records. I don't think our priests of today would survive, you waka.
Yeah, and no what.
How long would it take him to go down to Napier to pick up his weight?
And as I said, he had a buggy, and he'd come from Te Kaha
2 days.
to Torere to Opotiki to take services. And one year, one summer, there was a big flood at the Motu River.
That's right.
And the folk got word to him not to come because of the flood. He had to come on his gig. No, that didn't stop the old man. What happened? Didn't even get halfway across the Motu River and his buggy and his horse got washed out to sea.
Oh.
But he survived. Arrived at Torere dripping wet. It's amazing. I can't see any of our priests surviving what they did. They had to survive. Can you now, Ewaka?
No, no way.
Hang on a minute.
Unless there's a fish on
It
the
was
other side.
amazing, those old priests of ours. They were just absolutely wonderful. And I'm glad, I'm grateful, I'm thankful to the Lord I lived in that era. I saw all that. And I think that's why, even if I say so, Ewaka,
Yes.
most of us survivors in Ngaitai are like how we are. They're in the old church, actually where Archbishop's grave is, that was the entrance to our church when it was up on the hill. But because the road was getting too steep and slippery for the old people to come up from the marae, they decided to move the church down to the marae where it is. And because it stood, that urupa hill the bishop is buried. The bottom part belongs to our family, the Rimona family. The top part belongs to the King family. And where the church is now, down at the marae, it's on the Kingi property. But the old man gave that section so that the three buildings will be all facing the road. So that's how our church got down. But Naita, small as we are in our little cul-de-sac, we have quite a history, church history. And why most of them never turned Ringatu, it's amazing. They stayed in Ringa. But that's my life story for growing up in that area. But when I went to St. Joseph's, Kai and I wish she was here. Both, about her, but my mother was dead scared I might turn Roman Catholic.
Bishop's always there.
And incidentally, e waka, you know, my takuingo Māori, the parakoe, is your mama way at the back
Okay.
of the three. So go away from the toy line. But as far as I'm concerned, that's where a lot of talk for the Pihopatana to start was when we were building, we as curate, Takas, and Bishop Manu were in charge of Ranatike Manu too. That's where they did. It's a pity neither of them wrote anything down about the sessions that they used to have. But that's how we got to have our own bishops. Well, he was the first Archbishop Prime and covered the islands as well. There's another story on that, but it was very interesting. And the period that Kai and I went through in our growing up, when we first got married to our husbands, they were just little wee guys in the church. And they talk and discuss what they could do. And as I said, fortunately, they had bishops like Bishop Allen Pyatt, Bishop of Christchurch, Bishop of Nelson, supporting them in their want to have their own right, their own say. That's it.
Fante, anybody got any questions? Questions? Kia ora, Katawhaia. You bring back many memories, you and Don. Wonderful memories of church and church people. And I think that's the most important thing that we have to remember. It really is about people. It's really about the people that we know about, and it's us that now have to go out and do the mission work. But thank you, Don, for giving us the how the Trust boards came into being, to that man who wanted to have a fish in the morning. They give me the privilege now of going out and do some fishing myself. But although I hope Taupo normally gives it for nothing, normally, and of course with Paihewa doing all the work, travelling around for 2 guineas, it's wonderful. Well, it's morning tea time.